Listeners be advised. The Soliloquy podcast discuss matters related to the human experience and many that are sexual in nature. Due to this, some conversations may surround triggering topics such as sexual violence, self-harm, abuse, and much more. Please be advised, a list of crisis and psychological resources will be available in the show notes of this episode. With that said, let's get started with the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention please as we go through the following safety instructions.
In the event that there is a loss of cabin pressure, oxygen mask will drop from the overhead. Place the mask over your nose and mouth. Breathe normally as oxygen is flowing even if the mask is not inflated. Be sure to adjust your own mask before helping others.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Soliloquy podcast, where we step out and speak on sexuality. This is your favorite host, Vernon T. Scott, also known as Slaytor Jackson, and for you freaky motherfuckers out there, Sebastian Adams. On today's episode, we are discussing Planned Parenthood. Now, not necessarily organization, just things that surround planning for, parenthood or becoming a parent, adoption, all this other stuff. A generalized statement. But on this episode, I am blessed to have Tyrell back on the podcast. I promise y'all I'm going to be better this episode. Shit, whatever. How are you doing today, good sir?
I am doing well, and you are doing a wonderful job. So don't, always, don't be hard on yourself at all.
I try not to be, but I'm a bitch myself. It's okay. I'm going to just chew myself out a little bit later. But life is good because I can take myself. So look, I could dish whatever I throw out there to myself. Yes.
Exactly.
Because that is just how things got to be.
Exactly.
Now, Tyrell, because this is season 2 and whatnot, and we're easing people back into the podcast. Do you mind reintroducing yourself to everybody? Let them know about you, all the great things that you're doing.
Absolutely, yes. So for everybody that's new out there, hello, I am Tyrell Collins. I am based here in Atlanta, Georgia. About 25 minutes outside of Atlanta, but that's major place where everybody knows. I'm a doctoral student that I'm in English. I have a focus in Black, queer, and trans studies. So very excited about that. And yeah, I've just always enjoyed the nature of bringing my perspective and insights from a humanities type of perspective, and really engaging in topics that affect our communities, especially. So I'm always glad to be here.
We love to have you with us. Well, as I said, today we will be talking about Planned Parenthood. So the first thing I wanted to discuss is just it's expensive out here, y'all. Expensive means expensive for y'all who are new to the scene. So it is extremely expensive. So what are some of the expenses that you know of that related to having a family? We know like rent, rent. Let's not go into rent. Oh my God, rent is way too damn high.
No. Like this is gonna be a depression.
Look. Probably when this episode airs, it's going to be the first of the fucking month. And somebody's gonna be like, Vernon, why the fuck did you have to remind me that I have a bill that I have to pay? I'm sorry. That rent affects everybody, y'all. Yeah. But what are some of the expenses that you know of in terms of like having a family and whatnot?
Yeah. So yeah, in having a family, like there's a lot to even just consider before, you have a child through whatever means that is, of course. Like something that a lot of people don't plan for is like if you are planning like to raise a baby from the nature of being a baby in infancy, you have to get on the nature of where you want to put them in school, like as soon as they're born, because the list to get into daycare and preschool and all of those type things, like it's a long ass waiting list. Like, so
Mm,
that was something I did not know. Also, just if you are planning to, and I'm going to speak on both halves of this. One, I do want to just throw it out there that I am not a parent. I don't particularly like children, but I do know enough people who do have children that I think I can provide some insight. If you do plan to raise a child or preteen or teenager or anything like that, by yourself, really think about why really assess why you're having a child
mm,
in the first place, or bringing someone into your home, or having them biologically, or by whatever means that you're doing it, and make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons.
mm,
A lot of times I find that for when it comes to parenthood, a lot of people just want someone to love them,
mm,
because they may be going through any number of things. And I'm not saying that that has to be looked at in a negative view, but if all you're doing is wanting to bring someone else into your home, especially a child, just for them to love you, it's going to be a recipe for some trouble as the years go on. If you are coupled or partnered, make sure that you and your partner are on the same page or the same wavelength about the values that you want to bring into of having a family. I think a lot of times that conversations, don't tend to happen until children are already here. So just to give a very prime example, do you want your child to be raised in the church?
mm.
That's sometimes it's a conversation that a lot of parents they have. And even if you and your partner have had conversations about, hey, you have one partner that may be involved with the church, you may have someone that may not, or it does not even believe in the nature of organized religion, or what have you. You kind of work that out in your space of your relationship, as to say, like, oh, we agree to disagree, or we just mainly maybe not talk about it. But when it comes to raising a child, that is going to be a point of contention, because you can foster and navigate your feelings, but how are you going to facilitate and manage it with that child? So that's just a prime example. So just making sure that you're having conversations about what does actually having a family to you look like. Are you the type of person that you want to create that, just like they have the power couples? You're trying to create that power dynamic family. Does your partner want that? So it's like there's just a lot of things, but I think at the basis of it, there's just a lot to consider about what do you envision or see as far as having a family goes.
And I think like the advice that you just provided is what a lot of people need to hear for one. But it's like a lot of people do not sit down to have that conversation before they get into the family planning side of things, because it's either okay, a motherfucker is pregnant, or I will say, at least when it comes to adoption, you have that opportunity to like prepare for that outside of
Mm-hmm.
a in within family type of adoption situation, because I've seen some of that and experienced that personally on how that can impact a family.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like whenever you are getting to that point, or if you are pregnant, now it are the real times to like think about what are your finances going to look like, what does it mean to add another body into this situation, how do we plan on raising them, what resources are we going to make sure that they have available to them, and
Mm-hmm.
then you have to factor in, okay, what if my child has a learning disability, do I know how to manage that, or if they have a physical, mental, or any other type of disability that might hinder them or their accessibility with others in their class or in their age group. How do you focus on that? What
Mm-hmm.
can I do to ensure that my child has a loving family and to come home to whenever they're not at school or
Right.
whenever they're not in public? How can I facilitate that for them? And without having those kind of discussions early on, I
Mm-hmm.
get a lot of parenting is as you go because
Mm-hmm.
you never know
Right.
what tomorrow is going to bring or what the next 5 minutes are going to bring whenever you do have another live being in your home.
Yeah.
What were you going
Yeah.
to say?
No, I was just gonna say, and even when it comes to having a family, like obviously for people who are of the queer community, obviously, if you are same gender loving, or any of in that retrospect, you have no choice but to have go through options of adoption or surrogacy. So you automatically have to think about different ways to have a family. So I want to put this message out here, specifically speaking to more of, I guess, my heterosexual men that are, or men that are involved with women, should I say,
Mm-hmm.
as to say that men, we have to do better about recognizing the scares that a lot of our women have about childbirth,
Mm.
and also taking into account when you are wanting to become a father, you have to think about, well, what if that can't happen through biological or traditional means. I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of times when men think about fatherhood, you just think about that traditional way. Like, I'm going to, perhaps meet a woman. We're going to, not necessarily get married, but give birth, a natural way. Well, what if, the woman that you're seeking to have a child with, what if she has a high risk of pregnancy?
Mm-hmm.
You know, or something, is of high risk in her bloodline or in her family. So I just, I want to put that message out there to anyone that's, specifically men, because we tend to have tunnel vision when
Yeah.
it comes to certain things. So we can only think about having a family in one way. So I just want to put that out there to the men too. If you are someone that is thinking about, having a family regardless of single or coupled or partnered, to really think about this may have to, what if this has to happen in a different means or different circumstance? Would I actually be open to that?
Mm. And I will have to say it because I don't mind saying this, but I am very happy that I do not have to give birth. I am extremely happy and grateful
Oh yeah, no.
because for those who are able to give birth and choose to do that, more
No.
power to you. The
Nah,
strength that you
yeah.
have is amazing because being pregnant changes your entire body. Oh my God, your entire physiology changes. Like I've
Yep.
heard of situations where a woman had no allergies before having a baby and then became allergic to something completely random. And I'm just like, how the fuck does that happen? Like you gave birth
like
to a child, not like
no.
it's crazy. The
Yeah.
your
No,
immune system,
I
yeah.
commend bringing life into the world. I commend bringing life into the world. Like, no,
Because
just
like
no.
there's been some circumstances where I, known the person for like years, seen them on a regular basis, they're pregnant. I'm like, who the fuck is this person? Like, who are like the facial structures change? Like, there was literally a
Mm,
friend I did not recognize. Like, she posted a
mm,
picture online. I'm like, okay, congratulations. Who is that? Like, why are you posting her on your page? Like, girl, what's going on?
yeah,
And I'm going back and I'm like, oh shit, that's her. Well, congratulations, girl. But like, there's changes
yeah.
to the body that really does happen that people don't think about.
Right. Actually, one of my most irrational fears is to actually be, and this is like morbid, but like when I've told this story, they're like, oh, people are like, oh yeah, that's like a legit fear to have. Like, one of my greatest fears is to be trapped in an elevator with someone pregnant.
The Holiloquy podcast focuses on the variability of sexual expression. When it comes to sexual expression, we often depend on pornography to illustrate how one must perform sexually. For those who have not learned this by now, the stuff you see in porn is not real. Pornography provides a singular perspective of sexual expression that is not often the reality we see during our own sexual encounters. The Holiloquy podcast is a conversation that takes you outside of the compressed box of what many know about sex. Some of the topics we discuss includes kinks, condom usage, status disclosure, and past sexual experiences. The Holiloquy podcast steps out on sexual norms and recognizes that the norm is not the only normal. Subscribe today and join the conversation.
A legit fear to have. Like, one of my greatest fears is to be trapped in an elevator with someone pregnant,
Mm.
because my mind just goes to like the worst case like scenarios. Like, what happens if this person it goes into labor? Like, if I'm the only one here, we gonna be in for some trouble.
Yeah, that's
I
that's
mean,
a legitimate fear though.
yeah, I'm like, I don't know, maybe I'll, rise to the occasion, but I'm just like, no, I have a legit fear of being in elevators with pregnant people.
I, just imagine if it was more than one. Oh, that is kind of scary because it's just like, what am I supposed to do? Okay, call 911. I call them. What's next? What the fuck do I do next? I'm
Dude,
listening to
yeah,
them. I'm supposed to snip what? Okay.
it's like no, like I'm not trying to go south of the equator. Like like
It's,
no,
just whipping a little bit of puss. That's all. Just a little bit of
like no.
puss.
And then
Placenta
then
juice.
it's not, and it's not even really even that. It's like just the messiness of it. Like it
True.
would have me to pass out. Like so, I would probably be one of those people that I would just pass out.
Oh, you don't want to see the placenta?
So the placenta can stay where the placenta can stay where it is.
We don't touch the placenta around here. I understand.
Yeah, but
Okay.
it's like, but like, I know, they talk a lot about how childbirth is beautiful and things like that. And, I don't, I've never, I will never be in a position to give birth. But, I do believe that, welcoming all children into the world is, a wonderful thing. But it's like the physicalness of it. No,
Mm.
like we need to stop that narrative. No.
Look, I'm not here for it. I support those who do it.
Yeah.
Again,
But yeah,
I love what equipment I was born with, and
yeah.
I don't want.
But
Love y'all.
it's also like I love the fact that apparently I was an easygoing child. Like I've talked with my mom, a lot back when she was pregnant with me. She was like, "No, I had a relatively, easy pregnancy. Even when she went into labor, like she went into labor early that morning. I was born like a couple hours later.
Oh.
So she didn't really stay in the hospital too long. Like she, for her being of short stature, it's like I had, she didn't have to go through hours of hours on hours of labor. So I was a easy baby.
Oh, of course.
So
Of
I'm like,
course.
So look, as a message to out there, if you don't know the circumstances of how you were born, ask, and then if you were complicated, just apologize.
True. But look,
Complicated from the just apologize.
I've seen it. There are some parents who are frustrated with their children because of how complicated the pregnancy was. Like
Yeah.
it's like you was a difficult baby. Like this is a whole as adult now. It's
Mm.
been 25 years. Let it go. But I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. I get
Yeah,
it.
yeah, and sometimes it terrifies the life out of you. Like one of my a good family friend of mine. Like I know this through talk, but like my mom only has one son, and my mom she kind of told me at some point like her this person she did not want to have any more children because the birth of her first child like not necessarily almost killed her, but
Mm,
it scared her to
mm,
no end. And so she was like, "Oh yeah, one, and I'm done."
I
Like
understand.
no,
Yeah.
yeah. And same how my mom was. Even though I was an easy, birth, it was kind of like, but my mom always had. By the time I got to a certain age, she was like, "No, if this, if I'm not, in a circumstance to, want to have more children, for what she wanted of her life, she was like, no,
Mm.
like no." So I'm an only child of my mom. So
I fuss with it. Like, I, more power to my mom because she pushed two of those little motherfuckers out. Me and my brother. I love. I just call motherfuckers. But whatever. I know my brother was difficult. I was a sweet child.
mm,
I was horrible, but but I was loved. I was very loved. That's all that matters. But so in addition to the expenses,
mm,
because this is one of the things that so when it comes to the sex conversation,
mm,
I'm a firm believer that parents should have the responsibility or should hold themselves accountable to having these conversations with their children rather than allowing the school system to do so. However, the school system should be there to provide a comprehensive approach to sex education for their students if it's needed, or for those parents who are not comfortable with having that conversation with their children in an
mm.
equitable way.
Right.
And I also believe parents should be a part of those conversations so that they're equipped with the proper tools to handle these conversations at home if that's something that they decide to do. what are your views on sex education in that sense, as well as your experience with sex education here in Georgia?
Yeah, so I am actually a firm believer that I don't, I don't believe that parents should prescribe labels onto their children's identities,
Mm,
when they, especially when they're young, especially like the sexual orientation and, things like that. Because I get it from a parent perspective. You want to know how to help. And the only way you know how to help is what you see through media and things like that that are adult. So, if you have, colleagues or, friends like that that are openly queer, that's wonderful. But you don't need to, prescribe those labels onto your child because children, one, are very impressionable, and two, you do not need to be telling a 3, 4, 5-year-old child, like, oh, because you like little Susie, like you must be, like, those are like, must be gay, like, like, it's okay, like it's okay, like almost pacifying it because children's identities, especially even for adults, our identities go through so many transformations.
child.
So my aspect is that when it comes to orientation, be of a support to your child, be inquisitive, ask questions. It's like, oh, so why do you like Little Rodney? Like, tell me more, like be inquisitive, about things. And so, yeah, I really don't agree with prescribing labels onto children, first and foremost. I do believe that we do need more comprehensive sex education. And someone that I do, in the nature of this talk, do want to promote is a sex educator who goes by the name of Nadine Thornhill. She is a Black woman who actually counsels parents on how to have sex talks, with your children. And of course, she has a lot of other, kind of YouTube segments that she does, some that are funny, but are, taken very seriously in certain lights. So, one that I will kind of highlight and just to kind of like sum this up, she's saying that, when you're trying to teach your child about autonomy, like body parts,
Mhm.
of certain things to do and not to do. And it's kind of like reteaching yourself as well, so it's good to ask, children, like ask what parts of our body that are different colors, textures, body parts can come in different numbers. So teaching your child that not everybody has 2 arms or 2 legs. You may have some people who don't have any legs or don't have, or they may just have 1 arm or, something like that. Also, one of her big suggestions is to not gender body parts. Like, not all boys have penises, not all girls have a vulva. And so this actually avoids a lot of confusion down the line, especially when they meet other people who don't subscribe, to those aspects. So yeah, like, and I like how she puts it. Like, children know they have genitals. All we're telling them in like I would say maybe around like the first grade or something when you're having this kind of conversation. Like, children know they have genitals. All we're telling them is that they also have names to them. So, it's one of those things. And that's like one of her like early videos that, she talks about. But yeah, I do think that children need to have very comprehensive sex education. And that is a part of sex education, like identifying body parts. Like,
Mhm.
and and I say for parents who want to shy away from these conversations, it's like children are very curious and they get curious the younger they are. So the more you have these talks with them at a younger age, it won't make it, awkward or, feel weird as they're coming of age because then you start talking about different aspects. As far as like sex education here in Georgia, I can't really speak about what goes on now, but I can speak a little bit about what my experience was. And basically, it was almost non-existent. Like, we had like, like, of course, like I coming up, like I knew the biology of
Mhm.
sex, like I knew where babies came from and things like that, but I was not taught, at a preteen moving into teenage years, thinking about puberty and all of that. I wasn't taught that sex was also about pleasure. I didn't actually learn that until adulthood.
Mhm.
And so I didn't have a comprehensive sex education, kind of class or anything. We had health class, and pretty much the only things that we covered about sex was like making sure you use a condom and STDs.
Yep.
That was pretty much the extent of, what we talked about in health class. So there was no kind of making sure that let's talk about consent.
Mm,
Let's talk about various aspects of just what it means to be sexually healthy, be sexually empowered, and things like that, because I think that they feel like if you talk about those things, it's just going to give kids license to do it. However, that's really not true, because
exactly.
then kids are going to do what they want to do anyway. And would you rather them know and be able to make informed decisions rather than them not know, and then they're out here being taken advantage of, or not making those informed decisions. So again, I can only imagine from a parent sort of perspective, like, oh my God, no, it cringes me to talk to my child about, sex at any age, but it's kind of like we have to, I think, also give our parents or our guardians support and letting them know, like, there are different kinds of conversations you can have. Like, you don't have to have necessarily explicit conversations.
Hmm.
One particular instance that was being raised, I read an article one time, particularly about how to talk to young boys about sex. It's a very stereotype that a lot of young men, all they want is sex. That's really actually not true. However, they're socially conditioned to believe that, oh, like, I need to have sex, in order to be proven that I'm a man, or, something like
Hmm.
that. And so this article was highlighting the fact, if you actually talk to young men about their vocabulary and language that surrounds not just sex, but intimacy with other people, that can socialize them very differently as to make them responsible autonomy of our own bodies. Because that's also something I believe is a stereotype, and something that I believe growing up, that we had a lot of talks. And I do agree that we need to have a lot of talks about, identifying women,
Hmm.
coveting, the nature of, the body and respect. But we never had talks about young men coming up about respecting, their bodies and themselves.
Exactly.
And we get into this, double standard, stereotype that, oh, if a, young woman is out here, having sex, if it gets around, she's a hoe. And, it's expected for guys to engage in multiple sex partners. And I always just had that double standard in my mind. I'm like, because I'm like, if you're up here calling someone else a hoe, what does that make you?
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
so yeah, so it's just a lot of double standards that I think a lot of people, especially parents, they bring into, households, raising kids as far as,
Hmm.
parenthood. And yeah, a lot of things just need to be retooled. And just don't believe that you're alone. There's a lot of resources out here now,
Hmm.
especially as we're getting more into guidance counselors, sex educators. There's a lot of resources out here for you to broach to have the conversation.
Exactly. And feel free to, reach out to Vernon. I can probably help y'all out some
Yes,
more. Um,
yes,
or grab a book. But definitely send me that link to her YouTube page so I can add that
yes,
to show notes and whatnot.
absolutely.
And I do like that you brought up the concept of, how men are socialized, because there is that belief that men always want sex, even though we don't. And then even with that mindset, how that belief has been used to coerce men into having sex when they did not want to.
Hmm.
And that's something that's not often talked about, or even body autonomy in general, for everybody. We don't talk about that and what that looks like, especially not for men. Now, I will say one of the things that I challenge people to do, most definitely those people who are uncomfortable with talking about sex or even exploring that with their children, so that they can have a more robust or more educational background related to sex outside of that absence only or fear-based model that we have here in Georgia or in other states as well,
Hmm.
is understand why you have an issue with sex.
Yes.
And the reason I say phrase it that way is because there's a lot of people who are operating with repressed sexual traumas or even
Right.
known sexual traumas that they're experiencing, and they project that onto other people, or they avoid the topic of sex so that they don't either trigger themselves or bring up those memories about whatever happened to them or what they were feeling at that moment. And we have to get to a point, most definitely with therapy or whatnot, where people are able to get past those moments so that it can be a benefit to whoever they choose to raise if they decide to have children, or whenever they engage with sexual partners, because that's an important conversation when you do get to a point with someone that you might want to engage in sex with them. Having that confidence to talk about your sexual histories or your disease statuses, if you have any, or even your preferences when it comes to being in the bedroom, or even just your values around
Mhm.
sexuality. By having that comfort and confidence, it will make things so much better for so many other people.
Right. And something that I love that Miss Thornhill and a lot of other even, sex educators also promote is that talking to your kids about sex is also a form of protection as well. And to establish a dialogue that kids feel like they can be open with you
Hmm.
in case unfortunate incidences do happen, because a lot of times when kids are sexually, maybe like sexually abused, like it usually comes from someone that is like in an inner circle, or somebody who you family members thought that they could trust, or things like that. So even if you had the conversation with your kids about talking to them orally about who it is that they trust, draw the ask kids to draw pictures of people that they trust, and things like that. So these were all great tips and advice to give to parents about how to talk to them, and these are early conversations about the nature of consent.
Mm,
And you don't have to even use the vocabulary of consent, because obviously if you're talking to a child, they don't know that, but you're learning to associate diagrams and illustrations, and of good touch, how we have the classic case of good touch, bad touch,
hmm.
and things like that. So you're already even associating that with them at a young age, that they can actually understand. You can teach them about what like what a passive no is, or what an enthusiastic, yes is,
Hmm.
and things like that. So it's all about, retooling the language. So it doesn't, and I think that's what the hesitancy of it is. I think most times parents think that, I have to, be the know all end all, and you don't. You're going to learn just as your child
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And see, this is reminding me of a situation where now this is not me critiquing her parenting style at all. It was just for me
learns.
working in higher education and seeing the back end of parenting. You know, when you release them out into the world to let them explore themselves and grow and whatever. Bring when you release them to college and they get to be their authentic self, wherever that looks like, or their authentic them in that moment. You tend to, that's what I consider the back end, because you get to see exactly where the parenting has left this child,
Mm-hmm.
this person. And when I think I don't know if it was called positive parenting or whatever, I forget, but she showed us what happens whenever she says no to her daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And like, she's able to keep her from like doing things that she's not supposed to do based off the way that she was talking to her. I think it's called positive talk, which I was like, okay, I like this. This is cool. That's great. Now the only issue is that when she said no to her, she just burst out into tears. She ran off, start crying in a corner and all these other things. And I was like, whoa, that does not seem like it's going to age well for this young lady. Well, this little girl. Like it does
Mm-hmm.
not look like it's going to age well for her, because at the sound of no, it it sparks it triggers this kind of response that doesn't seem healthy, because no is an actual term that needs to be respected. Like
Yeah.
no is okay to hear.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like when it comes to like looking into parenting styles and how you want to raise your kids, I think it's important to look at how certain words affect your child and make sure that if you say no, they're not going to do like that. They're not going to lash out. They're not going to think of it as being such a negative thing, that
Right.
no can be accepted and still be good. Because if you live in a world where you have to say yes, in order, other than, if you have to say yes, because no makes other people extremely uncomfortable, then that's not a world I kind of want to live into.
Exactly.
That sounds
Exactly.
scary.
And that's something that a lot of sex educators promote and talk in having early conversations about consent with children, because naturally children not as susceptible is not the right word, but children are often, they do what adults tell them to do, like that's just the natural order of things. So a lot of people say start with talking about what makes kids feel uncomfortable,
Mhm.
or things that they simply don't like. Now, of course, that's establishing a kind of, tricky, kind of thing. It's like, oh, like not, don't say no to me if I ask you to go give me something to drink, or like something like that. But but really establishing with kids about things that make them uncomfortable. And because of the fact that kids, typically when we tell kids, to do something, we expect them to do it. And so what that can connotate to is that they feel like anything an adult tells them to do or entices them to do, it should just be, it shouldn't be questioned. And so you just have to really walk that kind of tightrope into saying that, yeah, do what adults tell you, but never be in a situation that kind of makes you uncomfortable. And of course, for kids, that's a lot. That's a lot. I'm just speaking,
Mhm.
as a bigger mind frame. But yeah, there's a lot of resources and tools that are out there that can actually help you to have the language. And I also think that for any time you may run across like a YouTube channel or things like that, watch it with your kids or watch it with your
Mm.
team. So that way you can actually have the conversations together. Because especially when it comes to teenagers, because one of the classic mistakes I think that parents make is that you always assume what your child would not do when you don't know them. Like when you don't know them. Like
Mhm.
I know a very personal story about a dad. He was very nervous. Well, not necessarily very nervous, but he had concerns about the fact that his daughter was getting like involved with her boyfriend a little bit too fast. Like the rate that they were getting, like their relationship was going too fast. And, he knows that, guys typically will tell girls anything, to get them into bed. And so he said that she actually just came right out and told him one day, like, I would never have sex with a guy just because he told me he loved me.
Mm.
And it didn't necessarily take him aback, but he did say, like, well, no, actually, I didn't know that about her. I'm glad, that she said that. But it's kind of like, you don't know what your child will do,
Mhm.
especially as they're going through, especially a big puberty age and moving into teenagehood and things like that. You don't know them. They're becoming their own person. So
Mm.
never assume what they would or would not do, or what they would or would not tell you.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like, but he said her saying that actually had them to have almost like a 2 hour conversation about just her general outlook when it comes to relationships.
Mm.
And he said, I never thought that I would actually have that kind of conversation with her. And it opened up, so many doors to their communication,
Look
you
at
know.
that.
So
Moral of the story: talk to your kids
talk to your kids. Talk to
and
your
listen
kids.
to them. Like I was, for me, again, being on the back end, is be willing to allow your child to be them and not expect them to be what you think they're supposed to be,
Right.
how you quote unquote raise them. Because look, regardless, yes, they were in your house, yes, you were, raised them, whatever, but at the end of the day, they're still a whole different human being. They're not
Right.
a miniature you. They are their own selves, and you have to
Right.
know who that is. And not communicating with them and not listening to them and not respecting their boundaries, most definitely in those pivotal teenage years, is only going to drive them further away than
And And also, don't be afraid to share your stories. I know that that can open up some wounds, but that can also be a healing process for you as well to share some things that you've been through with your child. And it's not to say that you need to go into explicit details, of course, or anything like that. But if you know that you can maybe see like your child is maybe starting to exhibit or has some signs of a pattern that like you recognize that you
Mm-hmm.
had, instead of like combating them and saying like, no, you can't do this or no, you can't do that. We all know the more you tell a teenager no, the more that they're gonna want to do something. But
Yeah.
instead, having conversations with them about, hey, this is, I really don't, kind of care for this or like this, the way that you're handling, this in this situation, because this is something I went through. Like the game don't change. Like, age plays a part, but the game doesn't change.
Facts.
So like don't be afraid to share your stories, to your children, because children typically they grow up with this idolized version of you,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, oh, mom and dad are perfect, or whatever, they can't do no wrong, they haven't been through life, and obviously we know that that's not true.
Exactly.
So yeah, so the more that you actually share with them and relating to them on a level of not seeing them as your parent, but seeing them as a man, as a woman, or any other, kind of gender identity. So I say that to like I've told that with friends all the time. And like really get to a place in your life where you actually have a adult conversation with your parents, where you actually understand them, not as your mom, not as your dad, but as a
Mm-hmm.
man, as a woman, because
Exactly.
you tend to learn a lot and you understand about certain things that you may be doing
Mm.
or things that you want to stay away from. I've had it on both ends. Certain things that have been exhibited to me, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go in the opposite direction.
Exactly.
you know.
Mm-mm.
So
I
yeah.
will say this message is for my future child or children. I don't know what's gonna that number, what that's looking like. But you, to that future you, I just have one thing to tell you. Your daddy was a hoe. That's about it. If I'm
Like I was, look,
if you ever
like
find
I was a whole hoe.
a
Like let me
hoe
just put whole hoe. Like let me just put that. Like
and live the life, you know.
yes. And I live in look, sometimes it was my best life too. Like you are a precious joy, but my whole days, like
Mm, look, love you, but look, if I'm at a age where I'm acting like I don't know myself, better than thou, holier than thou,
yeah,
you have the right to slap me like motherfucker. You was a hoe back in the day. You better act right, and I might act right. Only you can do it.
my
Only you can do it. If it's more than
my
y'all motherfuckers better gang up on me because I'm not getting slapped by more than one motherfucker on different days. Meet me on the fucking courts if y'all okay.
correct.
Anyways, let me stop talking to my future children. Oh god. Okay, here we go. Now, so I'm going to go completely off topic before we get into never have I ever because there was something that I wanted to discuss with you. And that is like I said, it's completely off topic. I'm sorry, y'all. We've already talked about online versus traditional dating. I'm just bringing it back. It's a whole new season. Whatever. Fuck y'all. I'm joking. I love y'all so much. But the question is online dating less superficial than traditional dating? How do you feel?
Okay, so I definitely feel that online dating can definitely be more superficial than face to face. Not to say that face to face, traditional dating, like, doesn't have its superficiality. However, I feel like in the nature of traditional dating, it can very much depend on the circumstances and how you met,
Hmm.
that can not necessarily de-escalate, but it can there's another perspective that can be looked at. So for example, if for any reason, like, let's just say I'm gonna throw a random activity out there. Say you enjoy gardening.
Mm,
You meet someone, you have an attraction to someone that you've met at your gardening club. That doesn't mean that you're not going to carry on the same conversations and things like that that you would have with someone online. But the fact that you met this person through a mutual interest you both share, that creates a little bit more of a positive kind of establishment of a value. of course, with online dating, even though when we're filling out our profiles, we can answer questions about things we like and stuff like that. The very fact of most of the time you're connecting through the physical and just like swiping right on, physical appearance and, things like that. It create just the outwardly persona of online dating apps create that vanity or that superficiality. It doesn't have to be used for that, of course, but it does perpetuate that image.
I
Should I
get
say?
that. For me, I feel like they're at the same level.
Okay.
The reason why I think that is like, let's say if you had a line of 50 people in front of you,
Mm,
and kind of not necessarily like speed dating, but if you just out here looking at people, whatever, you just like, oh, not that one, this one, yes.
mm-hmm.
It's the same aspect whenever we're walking around and looking at people because I know a lot of people try not to do it. Well, some people don't try not to do it, but people judge quite often.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we like what we like and we don't like what we don't like.
Right.
And many times we can make somebody's entire story up without having a conversation with them
Exactly.
and find a reason not to like that person
Right.
versus, oh, if we find them super attractive, like if someone you see in the store and they have a suit, tie, and all this other stuff looking great, looking sharp, you're like, okay, this person must be in business or they got a good job, all these other things. They might have just come from an interview. They looking great. I want to approach them and talk to them. And I don't see any difference in that from
Mm,
what you will do online. The only thing is you don't have that immediate access to them. It's more
right.
of, okay, if like if they respond to the message, then we might have a mutual interest. Or if they swipe right on me as well, we can build that conversation there. But we look at the surface first before we really engage in that deeper thing. It's just
Absolutely.
online, it's quicker for you to do that versus
Exactly.
you're out in person. So I would say the like in terms of how we interact with it, it's the
Mm,
same, but access to do so is what makes online
right.
more superficial.
Absolutely. I would agree with that. I would agree with that because yeah, and that's the thing. Like I like how I can't remember which CEO it was. It was for one of the dating apps. Like I like how she put into perspective one time. She's like, when people complain about not, finding like their matches or, things like that, she's like, it's all about how you're using the dating apps too. And, obviously even if you're using it for the correct things, it's like, but at the end of the day, you're the one that still entertains certain conversations. So it's like dating apps were created to create the matches. We don't create the relationships.
Hmm.
That's completely up to you. And that's why, in generally speaking, for the few, apps that I have been a part of, the ones that I have deleted, it really has not been because of like meeting people or like the users. It's mainly because of something like going on with like the interface. I don't like particular questions that they're asking. Like I tried to get on one app recently. As soon as I created my profile, I kind of like deleted it like within 24 hours because I didn't like the categories of like the questioning,
Hmm.
and stuff. So it had nothing to do about the actual people that were there. It was more so like the platform more than anything. Because I'm not someone like I'm not going to entertain foolishness. I know foolishness exists. It can
Hmm.
exist obviously in person too. Like, but that's not gonna change the way I interact, face to face or online. I don't tolerate foolishness, regardless. So it's like if you message me on some bullshit, you gonna get ignored. If you come up to me on some bullshit, you gonna be ignored. So I agree. Like, no matter the medium or the access, like you say, I do agree. It's like it's gonna be the same, like
Hmm.
almost the same result.
Yeah, and I feel like we, yeah, I generalize this. We as a society, we've added so much pressure and stigma around online dating, just because
Mm,
of that, lack of immediate connection or visual aspect of, okay,
mm,
I know this is the real person I'm talking to. I get that. Catfishing happens. We get that. But we've stigmatized it so much in that we don't realize that regardless of online and traditional dating, is still the exact same thing. If you're looking to find a partner and you're wanting to find a partner, you can use either to do so. It's just what method is best for you to gain access to the other people. Like, is that okay? Let me go to church more often if I'm looking for a church man or a woman or a person, or let me go to the gym if I want to find somebody who's going to be in the gym. Wherever the thing that you're looking for, you can find that if you go in person to those spaces, like you said, with the mutual interest with gardening, or hope to find that on a dating app. The only issue is that dating apps do not connect people often based off of their interests, or if they do have interests, it's only a select few interests that you cannot actually build upon. Like, let's say,
Right.
oh, this person is interested in, is it horticulture, whatever that thing is called. You're Is that a option of interest that I could select from? Like, can that
Right.
be added so I can find my partner who's also into that
Right.
same thing? But
Yeah. And even for like what you would think like are your confident, people like who have an online presence. Like I am particularly this happens on Twitter. I, scroll through a lot of like Twitter thread discussions and like some of them have revolved around like, like do you like to like flirt in person or, like go up to people in person? And not to say be surprised, but like for a lot of people who have this kind of like confident persona online because they're able to lead with showing pictures of their body or, like things like that that you're able to filter to gain certain attention and attraction from others, they are some of the first ones to be like, oh no, I'm completely like shy in person. Like I would never have the courage like to go up and actually, like flirt with somebody or ask someone out or, because I think a lot of what that social anxiety is, people ultimately like fear rejection,
yes.
And even like I had to really assess like when I had my first date recently, like when I was surprised, and I use the word surprise very loosely, like because I've never been on a date, so I wasn't necessarily surprised, but I guess I was taken aback about the fact I had the courage to actually ask the person out, and it wasn't one of those things that oh my god, like I was in total shock. I think the thing is, and I wasn't even having a fear of rejection really, like if I, that person had said no, like no thank you or whatever. I really don't think I had a fear of that. I think my fear in the connection or the flirtation was because I can be the type of person where I can have a friendly and flirty kind of conversation with you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the fact I fear rejection, it's about the fact I fear that I may create something awkward if I misinterpret something.
Mm.
So it's not the fact that you will reject me. It's now oh, maybe like I crossed the line here. Like just because this was friendly and flirty banter, that doesn't necessarily mean like you're interested in me. So now I've maybe created this awkward situation. That's what would have me a little bit on edge versus just plain rejection. But yeah, the whole aspect of superficiality also is very generative. It also can be very generative because we all have varying levels about what we consider to be superficial
True.
as well. So, you could see someone online that you like, let's go back to your example about like, hey, seeing that person in like their suit or, all decked out and things like that, no matter if it's online or in person, you may have an immediately snap of judgment as to say like, oh, that person probably thinks they're better than everybody else.
Mm.
Because they have like a certain aesthetic or a certain standard. Just like how I know, for instance, I'm gonna say, I used to have a bit of a judgment before I started learning more about myself and being more body positive and things like that about people who used to take just gym pictures all the time
Mm.
and like be posting them to like their social media. I'm like, I just understand like a pic or two, every now and then is okay. But like, why is it do you like feel the need to like just show your body all the time?
Mm.
So I really like, I used to have this very prejudgment about you're just seeking attention, like, and it's attention based off of how you look. So really, what does that really say about you?
Mm.
you know, and I kind of had to retool that because, of course, there's still a lot of people who do that. But, now, learning about the fact that, people do it to uplift others, who may be struggling like with their body image. And even to know that people who you would feel like have confident body image, they feel some of the most insecure about their own body.
Mm.
and things like that. So sometimes the things that can appear to be superficial because it's the way that it's presented, may be a little bit mismatched,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. That's yeah. That's all I can say on that. But like I would say the moral of that is just be happy. Because
Yeah.
like even for me, whenever I go out in these streets or go to the grocery store, I just stop caring what other people around me is doing, wearing, and all this other shit. I'm just like, look, if you're gonna be out here and be happy. I just want the happiness for all of y'all. Like
Mm,
just it's too stressful
I
to worry about what other people are doing.
yeah. I try to be that way, but like low key, I be judging some people
I'm so done.
because it's like,
Look, well, I cannot
it's like,
I cannot
look,
be on your local Walmart because you up in there be like, is that Vernon? Let me test Vernon and tell
like,
him by himself. I know you did not
like
walk out the
no.
house like that.
Listen. I try. Like, I'm not saying like when you going up the street to like you say the Walmart or grocery shopping that you gotta be all decked out or dressed up or whatever. Like, but sometimes some of these appearances, I'm like put a question mark by like why why just why.
I feel you.
And Lord forbid if you have children. And Lord forbid if you have children with you. Like sometimes the shorts they may be a little bit too short. Sometimes I'm just like I be questioning certain things, and I'm like it's not to pass judgment on you as a person, but I'm like you could have got yourself a little bit more together than that. Like
See, this is why I wish we still lived in a society where you can pull a friend aside or pull a stranger, pull your neighbor to you.
you
Say neighbor, neighbor,
neighbor.
and have a conversation. I miss those days, y'all. If
Yeah,
you here in the Holy Church tonight, turn to your left and say neighbor.
neighbor.
You could have done a little bit.
You could have done, yeah. Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah, so I'm not even as like people say like I'm not even gonna cap. I try not to, but it's like certain sites I'll see and I just be like, question mark.
Lord.
And of course, this has nothing to do about people's like personal style and things like
Mhm.
that. I'm just talking about things that just to me sometimes just be looking a hot mess.
I feel you. Look.
So
Whew. All right. So we're probably just going to do one. This is for never have I ever. Never have I ever kicked someone out right after sex.
I've never done it.
Mm.
And most of the times because I'm over by either someone else's place or we're in a mutual space. So I've never actually been intimate with somebody in my own personal space to actually kick them out.
What? Let's see. I have. I have. It was more of okay. Look, it's time for you to go. Not like we've been having great conversation. It's just like you know why you came here. So you came here, you did what I thought was supposed to be done, or you really didn't, whatever the case is. Look, most
Yeah.
of the times, if you're getting like booted on out the door, you did not do what you needed to do. Just to be real. But you came over, we did something, and you got to go ahead and go. It's time for me to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Nope. You're not staying here for this conversation. No aftercare for you. But this is before I started to provide aftercare after sex.
Mm.
But yeah, there was a point where I was just like, okay, it's time for you to go. Thank you.
Go.
There's no
You know,
cuddling.
one of my favorite thing in the context of that, spoiler alert, if you don't want to know anything about the show, LA's Finest, just click off for a little bit of about 15 seconds. Really quickly, the show LA's Finest was a show on Spectrum that starred Gabrielle Union, the actress of Gabrielle Union, and Jessica Alba.
Hmm.
And Gabrielle had one of the funniest kind of like after sex things to happen. She plays a character where, she's this badass, kick ass detective. And, she has problems with, people staying over like after they've been intimate. So she literally sets up to go cups in the morning.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Yes.
She literally sets up to go cups, like, because she likes her coffee in the morning and things like that. But she literally has a to go cup sitting right there for you. For the person. And literally, there was a scene where somebody she had been intimate with, she's looking at the person like, are you like not understanding the process? Like I've set this up. Like why are you still here?
But really though, like
It was, but it
understand
was
the
the
assignment.
right. It was the funniest thing.
I like her style because look, I not too many times I'll allow somebody to sleep in the same bed as me. Like
Mm,
that's when I actually might want to go further with the person,
mm-hmm.
or I love their energy so much. Like if it's a regular, I like their energy enough that we can lay in the bed and cuddle and all this other stuff because might as well. But if it's like something casual, even if it is somebody I've hooked up with in the past,
Right.
you got to get up and go. You should have
Yeah,
known.
that's the thing. Like, I wonder, like, if I'll have like a different, experience, like moving into my 30s when I'm like gonna have my own place and things like that. Because the thing about me is that after I've been like intimate with somebody, and like, say for instance, it's been overnight, like I will have that thing about because I have like like separation. Like when I've like been out for the night or I haven't been home or whatever, like it's like I get a little antsy, like I want to go, So it's like it's not to say I haven't enjoyed my time, very much have enjoyed the time, but it's like I'm ready to go. So it's like I'll have like these awkward stares in like the morning, like just staring at the ceiling, like questioning, like should I wake the person up, like should I just like create like a fake alarm that goes off, like because it's like like wake your ass up, like I'm like I'm
But really though,
like really.
like this is important. Like, what do you do the next morning? I feel like that should be a thread. What do you do the morning after
Yeah, the
sex?
morning after.
For those who are on these streets, what do you do
Yeah.
the morning after other than taking a
Please.
pill?
Yeah, please post it in the comments because a brother like me needs to know. Because I really be laying up there like looking awkward as hell.
Look,
Like
because
I don't know what to do with myself.
like if it's somebody like I said earlier, if it's somebody who I'm comfortable with, I know at least in the morning time we'll probably have a conversation before they leave or whatever. We might
Mm,
watch a TV show. But if it's somebody that I'm just like, okay, we have great energy, we could like you could sleep here is late, whatever. There's a point I'm just like, it's
mm,
7 o'clock. I'm surprised I woke up this
yeah,
early. My body was saying, get this motherfucker out. Okay, so what are we doing? I'm going back to sleep and you're leaving. Look at God.
like,
Won't he do
look
it?
at this. Yeah, yeah.
Oh God. So, Tyrell, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Lovely as always.
Do you have any words that you would like to, share with the listeners? Any last tips? Anything like that? What you got to say?
Oh, just two things since we talked about, two very different topics. I'm like, as much as it can be hard to do, like, don't always blame the dating app. Blame the dating patterns.
Ooh.
So, a little bit of a word. And two, obviously, as we've been talking about the kitties, the kiddos, the munchkins, however you want to, categorize them, just, examine yourself and how you were socialized about conversations around sex and
Mm.
intimacy and figure out just, how you feel like you can do better. And again, there are all types of resources out there for you.
See, I love that. That's what you call criticism because he definitely read somebody for filth and then gave some constructive feedback on engaging with your children and things like this man literally said blame the fucking dating pattern. If you don't get what he is telling you, it's your fault. Like literally blame the dating pattern. Oh my god. I fucks with it though. Like y'all, I was stuck for a second because I was like, ooh, and I kind of felt some type of way because I'm like, I needed that word because I don't blame the dating app. I do be like, these motherfuckers is just motherfuckering out here and it's just too much. These streets is crazy. And then at the same time, I also realized, but you're the one who's putting yourself in these situations too with these motherfuckers. So be real. That part I'm real about because I know what I do want and what I don't want. But that was not an attack on me. That
No.
was an attack on somebody. And I felt it for you. Damn, he said blame the dating
Uh,
pattern. Mm.
look, I'm gonna just say like the problem can't just be everybody else, boo.
Amen to that. But that's a word. That was 2 words, y'all. Definitely, I know I only stuck on the dating pattern thing, but the parenting advice, yes. Yes. Oh God. Again, thank you so much, Tyrell, for being on the podcast and reading motherfuckers
Always,
filth.
always. Like I say, I'm here to drop these gems in my golden year. Like, I'm gonna just
This
put it out there.
this is okay. I guess what I know what's going to be happening for the next year. This mofo is like, you know what? I'm going in my 30s. I got the hands. What the fuck up?
What? Like,
Support.
stare the truth in the face. Stare at the truth.
Oh,
Like,
spade a spade.
yep.
And listeners, thank y'all so much for listening to the Holiloquy podcast, where we step out and speak on sexuality. Just in case no one else told you this today, you are beautiful, you are worthy of happiness and joy. You are enough and then some. You may not live up to the expectations of others, but that is okay. You are only required to walk in your own shoes. May each day you live lead you towards abundance. With that said, love you all and see you next episode. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Holiloquy podcast, where we step out and speak on sexuality. You can subscribe to the podcast through your favorite podcasting app and find us on the web at www.holiloquy.com. That's www.heauxliloquy.com. Share the podcast with your friends and join the conversation.